about how to identify easy questions. This is one of the most important things that you have to keep in mind. For example, now let me define again what exactly do I mean by easy questions. So whenever you see a parajumble that has plenty of pronouns, that question is likely to be an easy question because the pronouns can always be used effectively to arrive at the right relationship between the sentences. So I always like the pronouns, and the next thing that I like about parajumbles is connecting conjunctive. I would use the word conjunctive adverbs. So these adverbs are often used to connect two different independent ideas. For example, when you have adverb like however, when you have adverb like nevertheless, when you have, so all these adverbs, they connect two different sentences, and they connect two different contrasting ideas. So when you see however, that means the sentence coming and the sentence before, they are basically contrasting in nature. Similarly, the word nevertheless, and then also you might have many such words like many such words like moreover. Then you might have words like in additionally, correct. There might be words like similarly, which express similar relationship, right? People, if you have issues with voice, then please log out and log in again, or let me increase the volume. Just hold on for a while, right? So people, whenever you see pronouns, whenever you see conjunctive adverbs, when you see concluding adverbs, all these adverbs show that the sentences are somehow interlinked. Correct. So without wasting much time, let's go ahead and take the questions. And I would start with the questions that came in CAT 2017, because that is how we have to go ahead and face the real situation. So when I go ahead, the first question that you will see here is question number 8. This question came in CAT last year, and this is a slightly difficult question. But I would want most of you to try this question, and let's see what exactly is the answer. When I look at this question, I say that, whenever you start a paragraph, it must look like a good opening sentence. So some people have started with D. They have said nitrogen, an essential food for plants, is an abundant resource with about 22 million tons of it floating over each square mile of the earth. So the word nitrogen has come in statement D, the word nitrogen has come in statement C, the word nitrogen has come in statement B, right? And the word nitrogen has come in statement A. So every sentence has the word nitrogen. That means nitrogen seems to be the matter of discussion. But surprisingly, one statement does not have the word nitrogen, isn't it, people? But it has the word lightning, and then statement C also has the word lightning. So what we get to know is that one statement exclusively speaks about lightning. There is no mention of nitrogen. And we have one sentence which mentions both lightning and nitrogen. It says lightning starts the series of chemical reactions that need to happen to nitrogen. So somehow these two lightning must be connected. And then this, in this sentence, we have nitrogen coming and featuring in. So this becomes a slightly awkward question, because how to fit statement E? That is the biggest question. So when I read this, when I read the statement, it says one of the most dramatic examples in nature of ill wind that blows goodness is lightning. So the point here is that one of the dramatic examples in nature of ill will. What do you mean by ill wind? Ill wind basically means a bad thing. A bad thing that blows goodness is lightning. So basically, the author says that lightning is a bad thing, but it does something good. And then it says lightning starts a series of chemical reactions. So now I am discussing something about lightning. But before I discuss about lightning, I have to mention what exactly I have about lightning in mind. Correct? So it says here that the lightning is an example of a bad thing that gets a good thing. I mean, it blows goodness. And how does it blows goodness? Lightning starts the series of chemical reactions that need to happen to nitrogen, ultimately helping it nourish the earth. That means lightning does something, and what it does, it helps nitrogen nourish the earth. And therefore lightning is an example of ill wind that blows goodness. So can I say that EC is a pair? Because in E, I have said that lightning is a bad thing that blows goodness. And in that statement C, I am describing how that goodness is. Correct? So definitely EC is a pair. Now when I have started with C, gradually from the idea of lightning, I have moved toward the idea of nitrogen. I have said that lightning starts a series of chemical reactions that need to happen to nitrogen, ultimately helping it nourish the earth. Now the word nitrogen has been introduced. Now what will come next? Now I have to put D. Why? Because I am now extending as to what exactly nitrogen is. What is nitrogen? It is an abundant resource with about 22 million tons of it floating over each square mile of the earth. And then it says in its aerial form, nitrogen is insoluble. Before plants take it from the atmosphere, nitrogen must undergo transformation. So what do we get is basically when we put D, we have B and then we have A. So ECDBA is the right answer. The point here is once you have kept EC together, you have to put D because D now is introducing, in a way, it is elaborating on nitrogen. The idea of nitrogen has been subtly introduced in statement C, but that introduction has further been solidified in statement D. That is the reason why EC has to be mandatory pair. Now, since I have already introduced the idea of nitrogen, I have to further elaborate on that, and that is what D does. So D says that nitrogen is an abundant resource, 22 million tons floating each square mile of the earth. In this floating form, nitrogen is in this aerial form, nitrogen is insoluble. It needs transformation, right? And nitrogen must undergo transformation similar to the ones that food undergoes in our digestive machinery. Because nitrogen is insoluble, it must undergo the transformation. So this is basically the cause, or rather I would say the reason, and this is the assertion. So the author says that nitrogen in its aerial form is insoluble. Before nitrogen must undergo transformation similar to the ones the food undergoes in our digestive machinery. So we have ECDBA as the right choice. A CAT 17 question, a difficult question I would say, but still I would say an interesting question. Is it clear to everyone, people? Shall we go to the next one? It's a good question. So option 1 is the statement 1 is a fixed statement and statement 6 is the fixed last statement. So we know that in this arrangement, statement 1 will act like the opening sentence and statement 6 will act like the ending sentence. Now it says here, the history of mammals dates back to at least Triassic time. After this, I don't know what exactly will be the choice. But then there is a hint, as I told you a short while back, that pronouns play a very important role in connecting the sentences. So it says this led in Eocene time to increase in average size. That means the word this is led here. So this here must have some kind of reference. At the same time, in statement C, there was further improvement. That means basically this is additional improvement. So before this sentence, that is before sentence C, I should have some improvement, and sentence C says there was additional improvement. That means before C, I must have some kind of improvement. The statement before C must have some kind of improvement. And this must refer to something. Now my point is, where do you see improvement apart from statement C? So here we have D. Yes, so many people have said it is D. So it says here this led in Eocene times to increase in average size, larger mental capacity. So this is increase in average size is improvement, larger capacity is improvement, special adaptation is improvement. So can I say that this is the improvement that D speaks of, and after D what I have further improvement. So definitely DC is a pair. It says in the Oligocene epoch, there was further improvement with appearance of some new lines and extinction of others. Now the point is, if DC is a pair, then what is this however justifying? Development was retarded, however, until the sudden acceleration of evolutional change that occurred in oldest Paleocene. So can I say this evolutional change must have led to what? Increase in average size. Because if there is increase in average size, larger mental capacity, then basically we must have the evolutional change, right? So can I say that statement B will come before DC? And that means I have no other place but to put a at the end. Why? Because in a you are approaching towards modern characters. That means a should come in the later stages, and finally what do you have? You have the peak of the career of mammals. So this is a very very good question. Why? Because we are following some kind of development process. Initially you have retarded development, and then there is evolutional change. So it's quite possible the peak of the career in variety and average size was attained in this epoch. This epoch could refer to what? Miocene and Pliocene time was marked by culmination of several groups and continued approach towards modern characters. That means basically this was the epoch the author is referring to, the Miocene and Pliocene time. Because the author has used was. Understand this. That means basically this particular time period is one entity for the author. The author has not said it is were marked. That means Miocene and Pliocene time was the time in which the modern characters came. Why first can't be the starting sentence? In fact, first is the starting sentence. The history of mammals dates back to at least Triassic time. After this, you will have statement. Why not 1A? 1A, it cannot be there because when you have modern characters in A, then after modern characters, how can you have average size, larger mental capacity, special adaptation? See, the evolutional change will accelerate something. So when the evolutional, see, understand people, the peak of career of mammals is one idea and the modern characters is the other idea. So is A and 6 connected or not connected? You tell me that first. And we say that A and 6 are connected. They are overlapping ideas because A speaks of modern characters and C and 6 speaks of what? The peak of career of mammals. What do you mean by the peak of career of mammals? That means modernity, because the modern human is basically the peak of the career of mammals. So when I say modern characters, when I say the peak of the career, they are basically overlapping ideas. So I have to keep A and 6 together. Yes or no? I always insist on everyone solving good questions. By good questions will teach you more in lesser time. Epoch means era, time period. Particularly huge a time period of geological scale is called as epoch. So A and 6 is one pair and BDC is the other pair. You have to start with one. 1 BDC 6 A6. Everyone is clear about it. Shall we go to the next question now? Great. Now we will take one more good question because this is how, I mean, these are difficult questions. Now take the sixth one. The fragile Yugoslav state has an uncertain future. So we start with statement one. The fragile Yugoslav state has an uncertain future. Then what will come? B or C? This is the most important step in the question. What will come? B or C? What is already exists? What do you mean by already exists? Already basically means it is already there. So the point here is already mentioned, some difference is already mentioned in the previous sentence. So it says here, the fragile Yugoslav state has an uncertain future. Sharp ideological differences already exist in the country. Ethnic, regional, linguistic, and material disparities are profound. Thus, there will be thus there will surely be chaos and uncertainty if the people fail to settle their differences. So we know that A will come here, and then after that you will have B. I mean B or C or C or B. Right? This is one sequence, correct? These are two different possibilities. Then we have the country will also lose excellent reputation it enjoyed in the international arena. At worst, it will once more become vulnerable to international conspiracy. So international arena, international conspiracy, that means D and 6 is a pair. So you will put D, you will put 6 here, right? So either it is BCAD6 or it is CBAD. So that means basically we have to choose from two choices. Either it is BCAD or it is CBAD. Correct? BC or CB. Now the point here is people that the only I mean we can take that these are but understand this. Thus there will be chaos and uncertainty if the people fail to settle their differences, correct? This differences is there here, right? And if you carefully look at this, people understand when do we use the word already. For example, let me demonstrate that, because this is a subtle concept here, that India is on the verge of losing the match. Correct? It has already lost 6 wickets. Correct? It has already lost 6 wickets. Now, this has happened in the past, correct? When you say it has already lost, that means it is basically the past tense, or basically something that has come from the past and is relevant in the present time. Correct? This is what the word already means. The word already shows that something has started in the past and has come into the present. So when you come to this question here, it says sharp ideological differences already exist in the country. That means this has been there since some time. Ethnic, regional, linguistic, and material disparities are profound. This is in the present. So, when you look at the sequence of B and C, the emphasis and the idea of having already, the word already signifies that this has been there since some time. By the arrangement, this already will basically complement this particular idea. So, the fragile Yugoslav state has uncertain future means what? India is likely to lose the match. It has already lost 6 wickets. The other two batsmen are not good in, are not up to the mark, or may not be able to score 100 runs. So these two are similar ideas, already will not gel with this sentence, but already will definitely gel with this sentence, because it is acting like an emphasis point. Emphasis point for what? The fragile Yugoslav state has an uncertain future. Correct? That's why you say, please pack your bags quickly, we are already late. I hope you understand the meaning. Please pack your bags quickly. We are already late. मतलब हम पहले से ही late हो चुके हैं. That is what it means basically. So the Yugoslav state has an uncertain future. It has already sharp differences already exist. In addition to this, we have ethnic, regional, linguistic, and material disparities. B and C are similar ideas. So how will already justify? So if you make C B, then I would ask you why are you using the word already here? Because C has a similar idea. Both C and B speak of the same thing. So already does not make any sense. Already is highlighting the gravity of the situation, and the gravity of the situation has been introduced in 1, and therefore 1 and A will 1 and B will form a proper pair as shown here, and therefore the answer is, as some of you have pointed out, BCAD. I hope everyone has got this. This is a very, very good question. It's a conceptual question. It teaches that the word already has a certain function to perform. This question will teach you the concept of pronoun and how to use it. So there are 4 sentences only by one idea. Now the point here is, people understand, sir, we will discuss this. It's a good question. It's a good question. The point here is we must keep an eye on the concept and also the logic, because this is the kind of question you will find in the CAT exam. CAT will not give you something very difficult and something which is, difficult to interpret. It will give you something which is very conceptual at the same time, Now look at this. Now this has been going on for nearly 200 years. What has been going on? So the first question that comes to my mind is, what has been going on for nearly 200 years? So people say D has been going on for 200 years. That means basically these two have not been going on for 200 years. What are these two things doing then? Is the passage about this entire episode, or is it about just one episode? This is the question I have to ask. So you will find that journalists and teachers are often bullied or fired in my country. At the same time, writers of novels and short stories or poems have never been heard. So these sentence D and C are basically happening simultaneously. They are not two discrete events separated in space and time. On the one hand, journalists and teachers are often bullied. On the other hand, writers of novels and short stories have never even been heard. Have never been heard. They haven't even been noticed. So you will find that statement D and C are describing two events that are happening parallelly at the same time. They're not two different events. And that's why if you point this here, if this is happening, then this is also happening at the same time. That means basically this should come at the end. Journalists and teachers are often bullied. Writers of novels and plays have never been hampered much. They haven't even been noticed. So this they haven't even been noticed matches what the idea given in C. Forget about being heard. They haven't even been noticed. That means DCB is a pair. So the journalists are bullied. The writers have not been heard. They haven't even been noticed. And this thing has been going on for the past 200 years. So what A describes as this thing is basically the entire DCB as a collection. Understand this. By putting D and then A, you are actually saying that this has been going on. And then what about CB? Correct. So this is one of the easy questions, and most of you, I think every one of you should get this kind of question correct. Why? Because now here, one way of doing this refers to what? One way of doing this refers to what? To stay close to the Soviet Union. Are you getting my points? That is where we went wrong. So we start with C. Once upon a time, there was a superpower named Soviet Union that attracted apprehension of the global aspirations of the superpower, the US. I hope you're following this. Once upon a time, there was a superpower named Soviet Union that attracted apprehension of the global aspirations of the other superpower, the US. Correct? And then what do you have? A young India, some years after independence, fashioning her foreign policy of non-alignment, found it prudent. So this is it here. Found it prudent to stay close to the Soviet Union. So this is how it is. And one way of doing this refers to what? Staying close. So one way of doing this was to evolve a bilateral relationship. And to evolve a bilateral relationship, trade protocols were signed. Sometimes you get the answer correct, but with the wrong logic. And that is precisely where your marks keep on fluctuating. Because though at times you get the answers correct, your logic is wrong. So many of you said that one way of doing this was basically, signing trade protocols. No, one way of doing this was to stay close. And to stay close, it was necessary to evolve a bilateral relationship that could be called upon to provide a buffer. And therefore, trade protocols were signed. The dollar as a medium of exchange was ignored. Trade was denominated in rupees, and the exchange rate between the two countries was to be fixed outside the ambit of free markets. So we have CBDA as the sequence and the right sequence. I hope this is clear to everyone. I hope everyone is following this. So when we start the sentence, we know that D is definitely going to be the opening sentence of the paragraph. After years of funding the losses of public sector companies, the government is doing the unthinkable. And what is that unthinkable? It is turning off the tap. So you have DA as a pair. The private sector did the same. That means the private sector did the same thing in the past. And with no consensus of the exit policy, the government is damned if it supports loss-making units and damned if it doesn't. So B is the end of the paragraph. DACB. Because did the same here refers to what? Turning off the tap. The same here must refer to some kind of action. So this action is not there in B. So C cannot come after B. C has to come after A. Why? Because the action of turning off is connected with C. I hope this is clear to everyone and everyone has understood this. This is our conceptual questions. Every time we are using the pronouns, we are using the conjunctive adverbs to connect the sentences, right? Everyone is clear about it. Depending on the difficulty, people understand. If it's a difficult question, I think it would be very difficult for you to crack it, but I think you should be able to get it in less than 2 minutes. DBAC, so you go with D and then you go with B and then you go with A. So if you go with A, then what is it referring to here? This and is connecting with this. The government is turning off the tap, and with no consensus, the government is damned if it supports. So this and is basically connecting with A, but C has come as an interruption in between. Are you getting this point? So you must simply add something more to it. So government is doing the unthinkable, and this unthinkable is what? Turning off the tap. Because if you put it here, then you will say after years of funding losses, government is doing the unthinkable, and with no consensus of exit policy, the government is damned. It is turning on. Now this turning off the tap and B and A have no connection whatsoever. I don't see any connection between B and A. It becomes a random connection, and therefore it is not a good this. So let's take the second and the first questions. We will take two more questions and then try to end the discussion. Okay? Only two more questions, people. Try to finish it. Now there is one big hint here, and the hint is there in the word but. But there is other side of the picture to consider. That means basically we have two sides of the picture, and before B we have one side, and after B we have the other side. Correct? So the statement one says it will be foolish to deny that the countryside has many attractions to offer. That means if you deny that the countryside has many attractions to offer, you are foolish. That means the author wants to say that indeed the countryside has many attractions to offer. So what are those attractions? There is lovely scenery, the interesting and varied wildlife, the long rambles through the woods and fields, and the clean, healthy air. So this is the first positive thing, and the second positive thing has been added by the adverb to. It says here that the honesty and frankness of the country folks too is refreshing change. That means basically before B I can have DC, and after B I can have what, A and statements. Correct? So I will go with one. It will be foolish to deny that the countryside has many attractions to offer. There is the lovely. So this is basically the many attractions the author speaks of. There is lovely scenery, the interesting wildlife, and so on and so forth, right? So one DC. So basically DCBA is the right answer. I hope everyone is clear about it, because it says the loneliness and monotony in the countryside soon begin to make themselves clear, and we long for familiar sidewalks. So the loneliness becomes clear, the monotony in the countryside, and one gets tired of the same old scenes. So A and 6 is a pair, and in the end, you must have A. At the beginning, you must have dy because you're talking about the positivities. And DC is one positive pair, and CB is the other positive. I mean, B. So out of five questions, definitely there would be one simple question. I would not say that all the five questions would be very difficult or very easy, but definitely out of five, we will have one or two easy questions which are pretty much manageable. Look, it's a very, very simple question. It says when the human experience tends to show that the more we mix with a man, the more we come to dislike. So it says in the beginning, on closer acquaintance, and when the acquaintance ripens. So we know that B is the beginning, C is the closer acquaintance, and A is what? The ripening of the acquaintance. And finally, what do we have? We have the truth in the end. The truth is that nobody is free from faults and weaknesses. But while a man makes a show of his strong points and his good qualities, he generally tries to conceal or cover his faults and defects. So basically, we have B, C, A, D, 6, and 1. This is how we have to